Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for a deep dive into everything automotive with some of the top experts in the field. Be in the know with Strategy Mob.
Hey guys, welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. I'm Skinny, and with me today, I have a very impromptu podcast with Sandy and, is it Zannino? Am I getting it right?
Yeah, good, yeah.
Amazing. And I've got to tell the story right away just because it's our intro now, because, we've only talked for 40 minutes already. But how I met Sandy. So this was such a cool thing. And I really think it speaks now, especially talking to you, I really think it kind of speaks to, kind of your spirit and your energy. I was on LinkedIn scrolling as I'm always doing, and I see, and I don't know why I was attracted to this at all, but I see this post of you. I guess there's a camera set up in the foreground, and you're standing there, and it says Digital Dealer Conference Tampa, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been hearing about this. So I was like, oh, okay, what's this? And I can hear Bruno Mars in the background, and I read the caption quickly. It's like dance break. I'm like, no way. And I'm like, let's see. So sure enough, there you are. You just start busting a move. Now, two other people join in. Are those people from your crew, or are those just random people walking through?
One guy was the DJ.
No, okay.
The guy that came out doing the robot.
Yeah.
And Lou Ramirez is someone that I just met him at Digital Dealer. I asked him for some help. I was like, hey, can you hit the start button so I can come out from the back
Okay.
of the thing? And then I was like, well, come on and dance with me.
Amazing.
And it was almost like we choreographed it.
No, honestly, it was fantastic. And that started my day. I was not having a bad day, just sitting down, enjoying my coffee, about to flip the news on. And I saw this, and I couldn't help but just smile and be like, this is such a cool vibe. And it was just, that energy was right. And again, it's, for me, it's people interacting where, we haven't been used to that a whole lot here in Ontario. And it was it was just so nice. And I had to comment, and I normally never comment on stuff like that if I don't know the people, but I was just like, you know what, like, you made my day, best post by far all week. And that's how we connected. And and then by fluke, there was another podcast that we had scheduled for you today, and that just couldn't come to fruition. So I was like, hey, you know what? Let's do this. And I'm so glad we did it, because we've been chatting already for like 45 minutes. But
I'm so excited to talk with you. And that's the thing that I do, really, as I connect people.
Yes.
I really do. I connect with people. And then usually it's very rare that I have a conversation that I don't say, you know what, you need to know this person over here somehow,
Right.
So, and that is actually kind of like part of what I do. But the dance breaks.
Yes.
That I started doing these little 45-second dance break Wednesday videos.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. If you
there's context to it. This wasn't just a random thing. You've been doing these.
I started doing them about 2 months ago.
Okay.
About 2 months ago. Every Wednesday I try and put out because dancing is my happy place.
Okay.
It is absolutely my happy place. And I believe strongly that we need to go to our happy place.
Yeah.
And particularly Wednesday, it's hump day in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And in our industry, I don't know many people that don't work just boom, just really hard. And sometimes I need to take a break, and I do this at home on my phone. I won't say her name because she'll start playing something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it.
Right?
Your AI assistant. Yeah.
Yes, her. And I'll just stop for a few minutes and dance. So I started doing these dance break videos, and they got a lot of engagement, weirdly enough,
It's not weird. It's not weird. It is what everybody needs to do, but is too embarrassed to do. Let's call it that.
Well, I want to do a group one. I want to do on Zoom.
That'd be hilarious.
And when I got to Digital Dealer, it was like they set me up. They had this DJ guy who, of course, I came out and I was like, all right, man, what's happening up in here?
Yeah.
So I just had to do one, and it worked out. It worked out. And now we have to see what's going to happen in Vegas.
Hey, listen, it brightened my day up. And I said to Jason, I called Jason, I said, dude, you got to see this girl's post. It's amazing. It's so much fun. And he actually wanted to be there too. So he was really disappointed that he couldn't go. And I said, like, this is someone we've got to talk to. I said, I don't know why, but I just think she's got this really cool vibe to her. I'm like, you got to talk to her. She's in automotive. It's right up your alley. Let me set this up for you. And then, yeah, it was just everything, how it all kind of aligned. I was messaging you from his account, and then, oh man, it was just hilarious how this all kind of came to. So no, it's fantastic. And I'm so happy to have you here. So people who don't know you, maybe let's say, especially because we're in Ontario. So tell us about your background. What do you do in this crazy automotive world?
I've worn a lot of hats in this world.
Okay.
I started in the car business in 1998. And I was hired by a dealer to answer the phones and file.
Okay.
And we all, at the same time, I guess, really kind of realized that how smart I was. So it really kind of worked out that way. I mean, like, it was funny because I didn't know what was going on. That group, those people are still so close to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the Wild Automotive Group. They have dealerships in Florida and Wisconsin.
Okay.
And at the time, Harold Wild, who started the company, was at the end of his life. I started like 2 weeks before he passed away. So the first thing that I did was plan the end of life celebration.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And all I was like, I just wanted to help these people. I'm going to cry. But that, I think, endeared them to me and me to them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I mean, like, and then that summer, the dealer, he was like, I'm going to Connecticut for 3 months. Can you do the websites? Like, I got like the first websites together.
Really, eh?
Yeah. Like, I mean, they were just handing me stuff. So then I did payroll, and I did, I just started running the corporate office, and I'd always had an interest in human resources. Here in this country, when you start with an employer, there's a form that you have to fill out, and you have to provide verification of your identity and your eligibility to work in the United States. For anybody who might be watching in the US, that's the I-9. So I was always that employee who was like, no, I can give you my passport. You don't need my driver's license and social security card. Like, I always read the small print, right? So I was always interested in human resources, and I just kind of started raising my hand when I would see things that they weren't getting done.
Right.
So I volunteered myself. And that just kind of grew. They allowed me to learn and grow. And I took over the benefits and the 401k, and it just really kind of grew until I was the HR manager, plus I ran the corporate office and did various and sundry things.
Okay. So like, it's no different to dealers up here. We all have that special person that you sign on to a store, and then you realize the capabilities, and then they become the go-to person. But
that was me.
Yeah, and I think you had that opportunity because you worked for a dealer group, right? Some people, they start off and it's a single owner, or sometimes they only own 1 or 2 stores. So the expansion for that role isn't, I don't think, as grand as what you had as an opportunity. That's fantastic. So you just kind of, by asking questions and having tasks assigned to you, just end up being that person.
I went back to school because my life story is fun. I won't tell you the whole thing. I kind of I grew up late, I guess, right? I grew up late. And I didn't really I worked in hospitality a lot. Customer service, I've always had my customer service is a big thing for me. I never really realized it because I grew up at my dad's knee watching him deliver customer service to we had a little neighborhood Italian grocery store. Okay.
All right.
And so I didn't really realize what he was doing was customer service, but it's about relationships. So I learned that at an early age. And I just kind of brought it with me. You know, I waited tables for many years, did a lot of different things. But I brought that with me. And what I've discovered about human resources, particularly in automotive, right? If I look at HR as internal customer service, and I've got my dealer is my first customer, the managers are my second customer, but the forgotten customer, the employees, are also my internal customer, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is kind of like the secret sauce.
That's such a unique look at it. That I love that you are in a customer service. It's the dealers and the employees. Yeah, no, 100%. That's so enlightening.
You know, when there's so much that can be averted when employees in particular know that they have someone who actually listens to them and that they trust, because trust is a big part of that. You know, I was very trusted by the dealer. And sometimes it's a challenge, right? Like, and there is a challenging part because, and I won't say it like happened right away, that trust, but and I had to grow to where I was able to, because sometimes in my position you have to tell, you're always given the news that somebody doesn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Right? Often you're given that. So it takes some you got to have some balls, really, to be like when you were telling the person that signed your check something that they don't want to hear, which is another thing that is really important in human resources, because in many companies, I mean, you could do a Google search and look for, I guess, how would you put it, a percentage of employees that don't trust HR.
Right.
Like, don't come to HR because they don't think HR is going to do the right thing.
Yeah. They're just a yes man for the guy upstairs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That it takes, they have to know. And sometimes it takes, and I can say, I mean, I had an employee when I left that dealer group, there were a couple employees, and they were, one guy in particular, he's like, Sandy, who's going to care about us?
That's amazing.
I was like, the group cares. You know, they do, because I worked
That's
for
amazing.
I mean, I was the go-to, right? But in the end, the dealer cared.
Well, that's special, and that's unique, and that's but it goes to show you that they had an HR department because they cared so much, right? And they obviously empowered you to have that relationship with the employees because they cared, and that's great.
I think they cared about me. Like, really, like I said, like the story I told you in the beginning, like I was endeared to them, right? And so, but this who I am, like that is who I am. Like, I run around, and I think that it's given me a good, it helps me in my business today, right? In consulting, in helping dealers know how to structure their HR department. Also to know that HR should not be sitting in an office and you only see them when somebody's losing their job.
Right.
Part of what made me so successful and getting that group, the Florida leg of that group, when I left there, the turnover was at like 23 to 25% through, which is super low in
for the turning door of a dealership.
I mean, and that wasn't all me. That's also, you know, they have that particular group, their pay plan is awesome. Right. It's no draw, right? Like, people understood there's no draw. People they knew what they were making. And every pay period, and there's no true up at the end of the month. The only true up, the only, you know, big commission payroll is sales managers.
See, and that's like, there's something to be said about making salespeople earn every dollar. And I think that's something that, is taken for granted here. And it's so funny too, because here, I don't know a dealership myself that doesn't operate on a draw. And yet it's still funny how unaccountable salespeople can be for their actions and product during the day.
Yeah. I
You're
mean,
paying people to be here, but you're not enforcing any activities other than watch the door for the up bus, make your calls, answer leads. Other than that, I guess just sit there.
right, because then you really kind of have, in order at, I'm not a big fan of the draw. I mean, like I know that it's a big deal in our industry, and perhaps because that's the way I grew up with no
Yeah.
draw,
Yeah.
in this industry, that might be part of it. But I mean, what I've seen is, like, what do you do when somebody's in the bucket? And then they owe you money,
Yeah.
but you need to actually now, even if it's performance, you should really have like at least a 3-month window of them not meeting their performance standard
Yeah.
before you are going to let them go. Now they're in the bucket 3 months.
Yeah.
And here you can only recoup so much of that, because you have to pay people minimum wage for every
Correct.
hour that they work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't take all their then you're paying for their health care. I mean, sometimes the draw doesn't make much sense to me. And I do believe that our industry we need to make some kind of like big changes.
Yeah.
big changes for culture, because and this is one of my, I get on these soapboxes, like I get on and this is actually, I guess I shouldn't call it a soapbox, because I've been talking about this for years.
Right.
And that is how our industry really might need to change because of the demographic of the workforce.
Yes.
So
give me an example of that.
Well, worldwide, like in a couple of years now, Millennials and Gen Z will make up like 70% of the workforce.
Yeah.
So we're also in a very interesting place where I don't know if we've had this many generations in the workforce before, but there could be 5, right? Like some dealers are actually still they're traditionalists. Then we've got boomers who are rapidly reaching retirement age. They're also our thought leaders and our skill leaders, right? Like you've got these boomers who need to take their knowledge and give it to the millennials.
Yeah.
And Gen Z. Millennial right now is the biggest cohort in the, at least the US workforce.
Yeah.
But Gen Z is coming up quick, and Gen Z they're going to be even bigger. This is a generation that is even bigger than millennials. Different than millennials,
yes.
Right? So now our workforce is going to be millennials who I think other generations get a bad rap, like the generations that come behind.
Sure.
The next generation, I think we're just pissed off because they're younger than us sometimes, right? Oh, those whippersnappers.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been, I could give you some examples. There's a Newsweek article that was written in 1993 that and it's called like the whiny generation. And if you read the article without knowing when it's been written, you would think that that they're talking about millennials.
Oh, that's so funny.
Talking about is my generation is Generation X.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So
it's the same complaint, doesn't it? Yeah, it's just the generations. Yeah.
Yes. But so why I think we need to change is because Gen Z is not going to work in our culture, in our traditional automotive culture.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's already been hard to get millennials to stay. When you look at the NADA, workforce studies, and they break it down, turnover by generation, by gender, we know that we have a challenge recruiting women and diversity. So when you put all of that together, I just really believe that our industry has to have a paradigm shift, really, like where, at least I hope we do. And of course there's so much reason when you look at just diversity, right? Which inclusion comes first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Inclusion comes first, and diversity is it's broad. Obviously, right now, racial diversity, especially after a year ago, and the murder of George Floyd really brought the inequities to light. More people realize there's something just wrong.
Yeah,
there's something wrong, and you can look at our dealer body and see. I mean, of course, I can speak mostly to U.S. because I haven't studied,
of course,
Canadian dealers, but there's like roughly 18,000 dealers, and I think the minority dealership, there's like 14 to 15,000 minority dealers owned out of 18,000 dealers. Like, that's crazy. It's so huge.
Yeah.
And that is also reflected in our workforce. We're the most diverse country. Our population is so super diverse, but that's not reflected in the showroom.
Yeah.
Isn't?
Yeah. No, it's really not. It really isn't.
And I believe the reason is because of inclusion, right? Without fostering a true culture that is inclusive, that not just welcomes, but also celebrates people for their differences. Without that, we can hire for all the diversity that we want, but they're not going to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand exactly what you mean.
So I think that the solution for that is doing it all at the same time. And it takes a long time. Like, that's the other thing too. That's going to be tough. I think that's going to be a challenge for our industry, is that understanding that if you really want to make a difference, and also make, like, what the research shows is that it's a 36% profit difference. 36%.
Really?
Gender and racial diversity creates a 36% higher performance and profit than companies that don't do it.
That's incredible.
That's from a McKinsey study that they've been doing incrementally. It was like the third one. I think it was 26% if it's just gender diversity.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, and that means at all levels, right? You need to see, people need to see it to be it.
Yeah.
So, one thing I tell dealers, like, if they want to start, I'm like, okay, start first, look at your census, right? Like, see where you are, compare that with your demographics in the area in which you operate.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll see the imbalance right there.
Well, right. You'll see it. But I also say, and it doesn't count if all of your minority employees are in detail, car wash, ballet.
Yeah, no, it's so true though. It is so true. You're absolutely right.
And all your women are in accounting.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Like, there is nothing more fascinating to me, because I have hired several women for sales roles, and they've always exceeded on general expectations, not because they're women, but sales expectations. they've always exceeded it. And I've always, it's just that inclusivity, and that it creates that culture, right? And when you have inclusivity in your showroom, you have this culture that really, like you say, hopefully celebrates together. But what you don't see is, like Christmas is just it's such an easy example to kind of pick on. Christmas in a dealership in Ontario is celebrated, trees go up and decorations go up. However, Ramadan, there's not an email to say happy Ramadan, go wish Amir happy Ramadan. That's so
Right.
not included, right?
Right.
So we only celebrate what's traditional. But when you look at, like you say, the demographic of our customers, it's so non-traditional, it's so widely diverse that we really, that culture, like you say, for people to feel included and part of the family. Because let's face it, every dealership preaches, it's a family here. We're such a family atmosphere. Well, no, you're not, because you're only celebrating, things
If you
that,
look like us, only.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
And
so
I mean, I think that it's a challenge for people who look like me and you, often, to acknowledge the privilege that
Yep.
we have, that I didn't do anything to get other than be born. And it I think it can be a challenge. And I think the one thing I say sometimes to people is that if you feel defensive about that, take a deep breath, and breathe into that, because defensiveness is one of for me, I know personally, if I'm defensive about something, there's something that I need to learn.
Right.
Like there's something there.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. So it can be a challenge. And the other part is understanding that these initiatives, DEI initiatives, actually, I'm looking at the clock, because at 1:00, I'm part of a Automotive Champions DEI Council. So, I mean, this is a huge passion of mine. I would love to see our industry be the best that it could possibly be. And we can't do that until we overcome this challenge. Right?
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Because again, just using my own experience as an example, in all honesty, I think for the most part, most of the stores I've worked at, management is primarily made of white Caucasians, primarily. I've had some great managers. Niall Boatswain, for example, was a fantastic general manager, and I learned so much for him. So I've had some experiences where it's not that case, but primarily it is. Sales managers are usually overworked. They're always running around. There's always fires to put out. It's that dealership chaotic lifestyle that is addictive, but so not productive. But give me an example or some advice on, if I'm in that role ever again, where it's the hustle and bustle, how can I take time to reflect and change my culture based on what we just talked about? What can I do to be like, stop what you're doing, let's plan this out, and let's make sure that I am inclusive of everybody in the store, and just take time away from that regular hustle and bustle to really try to build that inclusive environment?
Well, the first thing that I always say is that you have to start with the data, right? You have to see where you are before you can decide to change, or where you want to change, or what needs to change. And the second thing is, I would say, hire an expert, right?
Okay.
Know that you're and understand your why.
Yeah.
All these are the things that you have to do first, right? Like all of that stuff, to understand all that. And then you start with the data, and then you include everybody else.
Yeah.
You include, have like your own little council, your own little dealership council that is made up from somebody from every department.
Yeah.
Start talking to your people. Do surveys.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
That is a huge part of, first you have to get them to trust. And this is the other thing that I started to say that I never said is have an understanding that if you want to do this, it's going to take no less than 3 years.
Right.
Before you see some real, you might have some little wins and celebrate those.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But before you see some real change, the average is apparently like 3 years. And it is a process and it's incremental. So when you come up with those things with an expert, start and do surveys of your employees to find out where you need to do that. Because like what you're saying, like the question that you asked me is something that I think that in our thought processes, and we do this all the time, like, a great example is every dealership now, you can go to their About Us page and you'll see their core values. Might be 4 or 5 core values. These are usually values that the dealer has decided is going to go on their website.
Yeah.
But are they lived? How do they show up in the dealership?
Right.
Right. Like, what are the stories about that?
Right.
Asking employees, I think is one of the most important things. Asking your employees, and like I can send you, like I have a few little DEI surveys.
Yeah.
That you could start with, that any dealer could start with to find out where they are. It's part of knowing
baseline, right?
Yeah, part of knowing where you are, because I think everybody loves it here. I think everybody loves working here, right? Like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But maybe some people don't.
And now, is this something? It sounds to me, and I think you've already said it, but it sounds like is this something that falls on something for the HR to do? But as I asked that question, I realized you said, what, this should be a council. This should be everybody, from different departments. That kind of, is this something that you tackle as a team?
It's in my view, like I told you that I took a class, and one of the things that, and it wasn't a class, it was a 3-month class, right? Like you can go get a certification in 3 days.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. It gave a framework, right? So I have this framework, and it has moving parts. Just like it fits so great with our industry, right? It's all these moving parts. HR by itself is not equipped. We're not equipped. They don't teach us this. We're just not equipped.
Right.
So my first advice is definitely hire an expert. I haven't even started really doing this yet, because I want to work with another expert, and I'm talking
to better understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't want to go in like, there's another aspect of that that's a personal thing. Like, I didn't want to be like the white woman who's like, oh, ka-ching on DEI, right?
Yeah, no, fair. Absolutely. Yeah, I understand.
So yeah, it to me, there needs to be executive level promoters, I guess, or sponsors of this. But a good program is going to include everybody in some way. There's so many different things that you can do, and you don't have to do it all. That's the thing. It can seem like really daunting.
Sure.
You can start small.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
No, start small. In fact, I definitely want to mention WOCAN. I don't know if are you familiar with WOCAN, the Women of Color Automotive Network?
No, never. No, I heard that.
Oh, we need to tell you about WOCAN, because
okay, please do.
One aspect of DEI programming is employee resource groups, right? So racial diversity, we already don't have a lot of women. We have even less women of color.
Right.
Right. Let's say 19% women, about 5% women of color.
Okay.
So when you have employee resource groups, it's kind of hard for a store. You're not going to have enough people to have an actual employee resource group.
Mm-hmm.
So WOCAN, one of the things about Women of Color Automotive Network, which was started by 4 women of color in our industry, Carrie Wise, Amanda Gordon, Erica Tiffany, and Patrice Banks are the 4 founders. And I'm blessed. They're actually, if you could go register today, if you go to the website, which I think it's WOC Automotive. Let me look it up because it's not. You can register because Amanda Gordon's telling her story tonight. So there's programming. It's a place for women of color in our industry, in automotive, to find support. Mm-hmm. Education is a big part, and we also have. I'm saying we because I'm a member of WOCAN. An ally member, right? And so there's going to be some interesting stuff happening, but there's a speaker every month. There's a speaker quarterly. There's other educational opportunities. There's networking opportunities. Your network is your network.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They say. And it's just an awesome organization that was born really from these 4 founders and their experience in the automotive industry. Yeah. Often being the only one.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt about that.
Often being the only one leaves you no room for there's no margin for error.
Yep.
Did you ever think about that? Like there's no margin for error.
Mm-hmm. No,
be twice as good and half as black or half as Indian or and anyway, so I definitely want to mention WOCAN and invite anybody who might be watching to go check us out on Facebook and everywhere, because it's a pretty awesome organization. It's also a place for your employees, your women of color employees to go to, and we welcome allies too. So that's men of color, men in general, and women who look like me.
I think there's something to be said about a male who wants to learn about that to help empower their sales team who are women of color, who are diverse. You can learn so much from these groups to help your employees. Then you can take these things and, like you say, it starts at the top, right? So if you see that leadership role, encouraging and helping, and the other salespeople, the other people in the dealership really get a sense of that culture, that inclusive environment. And I just think it feels good, right? Like there's humanity at all levels. And, just because a dealership is a business and it's quick and it's fast paced and it's fires and it's sales and there's still humanity that goes on there. And especially in the context, because we always forget this, the context of what we're selling the second most expensive purchase anybody will ever make.
Yeah. Often the first for these new generations.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Great point.
Biggest.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you look at, now I think the average was like 33 years old, still living at home with their parents because they can't afford to move out.
They can't.
But I mean, imagine having a environment and a culture where there is inclusivity and it's very, like I say, that humanity is brought back to the dealership and everybody just feels those, the warm and fuzzies. Well, it's not lost on your clients and your guests coming in the door. They're going to feel that. And what a great purchase experience when you have that humanity, that environment in your store.
And you know what else we're going to have? I mean, one thing we forget is not only when we're looking at staffing and who is our future staff, they're also your future clients.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going to have the biggest buying power in the dealership. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that you just said but I have a question that I want to ask you,
Yes,
because
please do.
you mentioned that you had hired women and they just excelled and just kicked ass.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it about them?
To be honest, they have a softer side. In particular, this one girl. She was a girl at the time. She was, I believe, 19 years old. Her name is Alyssa. She's just a sweetheart. I hired her. She was doing, I think she was ECE, if I'm not mistaken. So she was a early childhood educator working like a daycare setting. And she came to me through a friend, and I said, listen, I said, I'd love to train you. We had a completely abolished the sales process in this dealership that I was at. Is a whole other story to tell you. But anyway, she came to us, and I was able to train her from basically never knowing anything about cars to a salesperson, and her gentleness from working with kids too, especially, I think really shined. She um she sat with the customer in the same side of the desk rather than behind a desk. You know what I mean? It was not a sales process for her. It
It was
was
relationships.
it was a relationship. She understood clearly, and this was not her trying to be tenacious at sales, which is the hilarious part. For 16 months, she was not a good salesperson. Okay? She was a good relationship builder. And what I mean by that is she could not close a deal. Almost all of her customers, I would come in, I'd chit chat. It was the easiest sale of my life because they were just loving her.
They
But
were already on board, but she didn't know how to wrap it up.
exactly, literally just didn't know how to wrap it up and say, do you want to buy the car? She probably could have just said that line and it would have been yes.
Yeah.
Right? So for 16 months, this is my job. It's just to swoop in, chit chat with the customers, just get them to sign a piece of paper, and then I'd leave. That's all I needed to do. But she formed this relationship, and it was absolutely incredible. And I remember I was so hard on her when it got to that, 14 to 16 month period where I was like, you've got to ask for the sale. You've got to ask for the sale. You already have the sale. You don't know it. Just, and I remember one day I was still being hard on her, and she finally broke down in my office and cried. And I said, it's about time. And she says, what do you mean? I said, I think you're just about to have this moment. I said, you are a lot more tenacious than you come across as, than you think you are. I said, you need something to click that you now don't stop doing anything you're doing, but just simply just say, would you like to buy the car? Slide it in there. And you're just going to see, yeah, no problem. And they're going to go back to talking to you. And she laughed. She goes, you're kidding me. I said, no. I said, I've been hard on you and not wanting to come in on your deals because I wanted you to try to do it on your own. But, maybe you weren't equipped. I said, but I think you're going to change. And sure enough, she did. And she became not aggressive, but she just had the confidence to ask. And she moved on, and she's now working for a Lexus store, and she is just doing amazing. And she's
How many cars was she selling with you?
20 some odd a month.
I mean, like, who wouldn't want a 20 car salesperson?
She's such a sweetheart. You can't help but not just love talking to her. And she just builds relationships, right? Like that's all she does.
Damien Boudreau has taught me, because I didn't know anything about sales when I opened my business, right? And at one point I talked to this, I won't say one, he's a long retired independent dealer. He had and he says to me one time when I first opened, Sandy, I'm like, how do I get clients now? Like, what do I do? And in the Southern accent, Sandy, even a blind hog gets an acorn once in a while. So like, he was like, just go knock on doors, knock on everywhere. And what I've realized through learning from other people, and most especially Damien Boudreau, is that selling cars is not about selling cars.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of sales is not about sales.
Mm-hmm.
About those relationships. We get stuck in but we do it the way that we do it because it's the way we've always done it.
And that goes back to, like you were saying, this was 25 minutes ago, you saying that we have these different generations that are entering the workforce, and the older generations, for lack of a better term, need to impart some wisdom, but they also need to listen.
Yes.
Right? Because there's a different way that we should be doing car sales in general, I believe. And it's the people at the top who are not open to these new ideas, but the Gen Zs, the millennials are coming and going, guys, people are buying stuff everywhere other than this business differently. What are we doing here? And they don't want to listen.
Gen Z. We could do a whole show talk on Gen Z.
Yeah.
Because they are the most freaking amazing to me. Also the most diverse, by the way.
Yep.
Like, they're so diverse. Some studies say that they're more than that it's the white population of Gen Z is in the minority. Like, it might be 51% diverse. Wow. So like, yeah, like, but they are so entrepreneurial. You just gotta give it to them and say, go.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with this?
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to keep talking to you because I'm having so much fun.
You've got to go, don't you?
I do. I have my DEI council that I need to.
Well, you need to go into the workforce and do what you do, because chatting with you, you've got all the right ideas, and we're gonna have to meet up again. You know what? You've got a whole. This is a great framework for everybody listening, because we're gonna get you on the Strategy with Jason podcast. You're gonna have an absolute blast with him. And you know what? If you want to talk to a guy about generational stuff in stores, he's the guy to do it for. He was a dealer principal before. We now work with, dealerships all over the Canada, US, even Australia. And you're going to have a great time with him. So I'm sure you can pick up this conversation where we left off and have a great time with him. So I will release you from our time together. It's been fun. We could chat for probably 4 more hours.
I feel that way. Like, we okay.
But no, I so appreciate your time today. For all the listeners, please check out that WooCan website, Facebook, wherever they are. We'll make sure that we post those links when we release this as well. And Sandy, before we go, anything you want to say? How can people find you? Actually, is a great thing. How can people find you?
Well, you can find me on social media, or you could call everybody's got my cell phone number, 941-306-8310, or email me at sandy@innovativeautohr.com.
All right. So that's how we get a hold of Sandy. If you guys are looking for HR solutions to change the dealership, I think from big to small, you're a great contact resource to have. And like you said way earlier on, you like to set people up with different vendors. You like to really kind of match people to who you know, and I think that's such a fantastic thing as well. So you sound like a go-to person right from all the way back from when you started in the business.
Well, thank you so much, and really thank you for reaching out. I really it's an honor to be here, really.
No, I think you and I were probably destined to do this. Oh, that's amazing. I love it.
Actual podcast.
Oh, I love it. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, if this was meant to be, it had to be, because that right from that LinkedIn post, your breakdown, your dance break one day. Love it. Thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate it. For all the Strategy Mob listeners, thanks for listening. And until next time, just keep an eye out for Sandy with the Strategy with Jason podcast. She will be coming very shortly, I hope. All right, Sandy, thanks so much. We will see you later. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob podcast. Don't want to miss new content? Visit us at strategymob.com to view our huge library of content and to sign up to be a mobster and stay in the know. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.